Alright, Tyler Perry fans. Now, this was technically a fan theory that was emailed to me by one of my followers, Jonathan, but it was such a great idea that I thought it was worth doing a video on. And for me, whenever I get a theory like this, I look at it, I think about it, and at first glance, I'm like, okay, there's no way this could work. But if you use a bit of headcanon and kind of manipulate the continuity of the haves and the have-nots and A Fall from Grace, the Netflix film Tyler Perry made, what was it, a year or so ago? Technically, it could work. So, Jonathan's initial post, let's see here. I have a good theory for Hanna Young. After the events of the series finale of the haves and the have-nots, she is terrified of what will happen to her now due to the fact that she killed Jim Cryer over the death of her daughter. Yeah, as soon as that happened in the finale, my mom and I were like, right off the rip, as soon as the episode ended, like, yeah, she's going to jail for murder because she got away in her car. But the moment she decided to turn around and run Jim Cryer down, that was murder. Up until that point, it was straight up self-defense. But, well, to be honest, she was the one that charged at Jim first after finding Candace's body. So she initiated the altercation. And then from there, she escalated it further by running him down. But, let's see here. Hanna gets spooked as she flees the city, leaving everyone she knew behind. Well, considering that everyone she knew, including her children, are dead. While she is on the run, she finds out about everybody else's death and decides to start a new life. I mean, remember, she didn't know about Benny, she didn't know about Catherine, and I'm pretty sure the Harringtons being the Harringtons, their deaths would have been all over the news. So, with this new life, there's a new alias, Grace Waters. She tries to start over again while suppressing her feelings about both of her children's death, leaving her only living grandchild behind. The little boy that was introduced like the episode prior to the finale, that was Benny's son. As well as getting away with murder. But when Grace beats her husband, Shannon, into like a bloody pulp, she is instantly guilty about the murder and tries to turn herself in. With this, the events of A Fall from Grace take place. Now, first of all, Jonathan, that is a hell of a theory. I love it. Now, I have not seen A Fall from Grace since it came out. It was 2020, actually, 2020. So it's been well over 2 years since I've seen it. I only watched it like once for my review, and that was it. So there might be some details I get wrong, but I do know that Grace was her and her husband got a divorce. Sarah, played by Felicia Rashad, tried to comfort her and pushed her to get out there and meet someone new, quote unquote, her son Shannon, and how they got married, and that led to a whole thing. But really, this video is about kind of bridging the gap or connecting the dots between Hanna and Grace. Now, I forgot how long Grace was married to her husband prior to the divorce, and I don't know for how long she was working at the bank, that she was working at the movie. But here's the thing, guys. The haves and the have-nots, at least the version I'm talking about, there's the play, but then there's also the hit show Tyler Perry made. That was for TV. A Fall from Grace is a movie that was for Netflix, meaning that the continuities can go either way if Tyler Perry wanted to tweak them. Hence why we saw Eddie from If Loving You Is Wrong in a Madea family funeral, or how Veronica Harrington was name dropped during the Madea farewell play. It could work, guys. It could. Think of it this way. I think one of the key elements that makes sense as to why Hanna could have recreated herself, a new identity, if you will, Grace Waters. She was working at a bank. Very good at her job. Don't you find it suspicious that she worked at a bank due to the fact that in the final seasons of the Haves and the Have-Nots, when she was made executor of over the Cryer estate, Even though Catherine said, look, Hanna, I have this person, that person, this person who does this. All you need to do is sign off on this, say they can do that. And Hanna was like, no, I don't really know how to do this stuff. I mean, this is your, your stocks, your property, your projects, your this and that. I'm not signing anything until I run it by you first. And even on top of that, Hanna began to study all those, complicated documents. I think an accountant named Al, who was a potential, but didn't go further than a potential love interest for Hanna. Al came over a couple times and, helped out Hanna with some of the terminology. And from there, Hanna was really learning how to do this stuff. So let's take it a step further. Go back to, one of the many times that Catherine offered Hanna a job, a raise, but Hanna wouldn't take it. And she's like, you know what? I've been a maid for most of my life. I want to do something different. Well, Hanna, what do you want to do? I don't know. Go to school, maybe get a degree, nursing, something like that. And I'm thinking, I remember when she said that, I'm like, Hanna, you ain't got no money. How? And then Catherine was like, well, Hanna, don't you need a job to afford that? I'll apply for a loan or something. So we know that, Hanna was in the mind space of educating herself further. So given her experience learning all these things while still working for Catherine, while being an executor, it's quite possible that she continued to expand her knowledge of the financial world. And instead of, becoming like a stockbroker or something like that, opening her own, financial company, she wanted to keep a low profile. And in order to do so, she just worked at, a local bank, well, not in Atlanta. Well, where does A Fall from Grace take place? Is it in Atlanta? Oh, actually, no. Virginia, my home state. Yeah. So, yeah, she moved up north, decided to just work at a bank, and then, hey, we're at where we're at right now. So, I love the part of the email where Jonathan was talking about how when Grace, broke, when her life was just being destroyed, I feel like that rage from Shannon, mortgaging off her house and, stealing her identity, taking money from the banks, leading to her job being sabotaged and her life falling to shambles. I think when she took that baseball bat and went ham on Shannon, that was kind of, I guess you could say, Grace reliving everything during her life as Hanna while dealing with the likes of the Criers and whatnot. Affairs, deception, betrayals, all of that stuff. I mean, hell, remember when Benny betrayed her by mortgaging off the house to get the money to give Candace to give to Quincy, and then she almost lost her house. Then her home being destroyed. All the affairs she was privy to working for the Criers and knowing about the Harringtons and all the foul play. All of that culminated by the person she decided to open her heart to and marry. I mean, hell, didn't he have a woman up in her bed at one point? It's just one of those things where Grace was sick of this. And Hanna reemerged. It's almost like she repressed the Hanna Young persona. And Grace just let it all out on Shannon. And then reconsidering the whole thing with Jim Crier. Instead of running away from murdering Shannon, she decided to turn herself in. It's kind of in the same vein of, Catherine Crier being locked up. Except she didn't do that voluntarily. So, it's interesting how that works out. Because at the end of the film, when Sarah / Betty goes on the run, she herself creates a new persona. Of course, in her case, it's all about deception and extortion. But, abducting people and locking them in a basement. Which is interesting because didn't Grace toss Shannon's body into the basement? So, irony. Is interesting to me due to the fact that Grace was on the news and whatnot, but wait a minute. You could argue that with her ability as executor, she may have taken some money from, the Crier's accounts and used that to start over again, which could make sense as to why Hanna Young wasn't mentioned in A Fall from Grace once her case went to trial and everything like that for murdering. So that could be a possibility there too. But then again, in the Tyler Perry world, law enforcement and hospitals and healthcare workers and emergency, response teams are only as competent as Tyler Perry needs them for the sake of the plot. So there's that. Now, I know this video was a bit messy, but I hope I did put it together as best as I could expect. And also, I love the fact that Grace had a friend who was an older character, Sarah, due to the fact that Hanna was probably used for working for older people as a maid. So her forming a connection with another, person who's older actually makes a lot of sense too. So there's that. But then again, that's really all I have to say on this. You might have to stretch a little bit of the stories of both the show and the movie, but Tyler Perry could actually make this work. Really could. Really could. Also, it's like, well, Jeremy, didn't Grace have a son, Malcolm? Yeah, but like I said, rework the continuity as necessary or as required for it to make sense. But I think it could work. Grace is Hanna Young. Keep in mind, when you look at Grace's, just outburst with the baseball bat on Shannon, doesn't that seem very close to how Hanna had a rage moment at the end of the Haves and Have-Nots? You can almost start. Well, then again, I think that show was done. Well, I forgot if that scene was filmed, because 2021, that's when the show ended. Tinka Sumter was like, you saw the finale just like last week, but that was 2 years ago for us. So if A Fall from Grace, yeah, it's possible that the final episodes of the Haves and the Have-Nots, the true final episodes, were like filmed around the time of A Fall from Grace. And as a result, Hannah's final moments and Grace's climax of that movie probably were intertwined. Kind of in the same vein of Acrimony and Veronica Harrington. So, hey, if there's anybody from Tyler Perry's camp, let me know if this is true. Do you think A Fall from Grace is loosely based on the Haves and Have-Nots, or vice versa? And could Hanna Young possibly be Grace Waters? So, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, thanks to Jonathan for submitting his theory. Shout out to Crystal Fox for being an amazing actress in both roles. And if anybody wants to chime in with any other theories you want me to, explore, hit me up on social media. Links are in the description below. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.